Welcome in to Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs. Coming up on the program today, 5 safeties the Texans could sign in free agency to pair with Calen, Bullock, and Jalen, Petrie. I think the Texans need to add to their secondary, and they could do that in free agency. And I know a lot of people are going like, Jeremy, free agency, safety, they don't even have any money. Well, we had some good news come down the pipeline today from Dan Graziano. This coming in today around the NFL salary cap. The NFL today informed teams that the 2025 per team salary cap will fall in the range of $277.5 million to $281.5 million, way up from last year's $255.4 million. Cap will have increased by more than $53 million over the last 2 years. This is great news because what was expected to be the salary cap this year, you can bump that up about $8 million. So the Texans have a little bit more wiggle room than expected. A lot of teams do coming in to the 2025 NFL season. So my thought is, what are some low-end free agents that could really help this team out in the secondary? Like I said, I think it's a sneaky need for this team, secondary depth. I'm going to look at 5 safeties in free agency that could really help the Texans going in to the 2025 NFL season. But if you want to help the Texans in free agency, I've been told by Nick Caserio himself, 100% true, that every like on today's video is another $100 that he can spend in free agency. Don't blame me. I'm just the messenger. He told me, hey, Chuggs, on the video, every like, $100 more I can spend. So if you want the Texans to spend a little bit more money in free agency, like I said, don't shoot the messenger. Go down and hit that thumbs up icon so we can spend those dollar bills on, maybe some of these 5 free agents that I'm about to talk about here in just a moment. And I know a lot of you are wondering, Jeremy, safety. You just said Calen, Bullock, and Jalen Petrie. That's 2 safeties right there. Why do we need another safety? Well, the Texans run mostly out of a 4-2-5 set. I mean, when you look at it, it's usually 4 down linemen. They like to only roam with 2 linebackers. And what that does is it brings a guy like Jalen Petrie into a hybrid kind of, nickel star role as a somewhat linebacker safety hybrid. And I think Petrie in that role this past season played wonderfully. He was awesome. The only problem that the Texans have is I think Petrie and Jimmie Ward both play that same role. I think Petrie's not as good deep. He's better inside the box playing near the line of scrimmage. Same can be said about Jimmie Ward. I think he's not good if you're going to implement him as a deep safety. That's not his game. He plays a very similar role to what Jalen Petrie would play. And obviously, you can only play one guy at a time. You're not going to play both of those guys at the same position. So it comes into a need of who are they going to pair with Calen Bullock on the back end to make sure the Texans aren't giving up any more deep plays in 2025. That is the crux of today's video. And let's get into my first option in free agency, Marcus Epps, formerly of the Las Vegas Raiders. I think this is a good sneaky option. And I want it to be noted as well, all these projections and kind of why I'm saying, oh, these are cheaper options, all of them are from Spotrac. So all the guys that you're seeing on today's video are around $7 million, $6 million a year or less. I believe Marcus Epps, his projected value was $1.3 million per year in a contract. So very affordable for the Houston Texans. Now, Epps didn't play much last year. I know you're looking at the stats. 19 tackles. Jeremy, what are we talking about? He got injured early on in the season. So you can't really look at his 2024 numbers. But if we turn the page back to 2023, his coverage stats, not too shabby. 17 of 27, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns allowed, 3 pass breakups, no interceptions, a quarterback rating when targeted of 115.2. Yes, is he an amazing option? No. He's not the best safety out there. But at $1 million, you tell me I could add, a good depth piece in Marcus Epps, somebody who, back in 2022 when the Eagles made the Super Bowl, was one of their best players on the defense. I think that could be a decent option. Now, is he the best coverage safety on the back end? No, but like I said, at $1 million, I think it's a decent option for the Texans to at least consider adding in free agency as another depth guy, another guy that the Texans can add into this secondary. Now, I want to ask you this. I think the Texans are going to add a safety. I think most of y'all might think that as well. Do you think they're going to add somebody, though, in free agency? or the draft. A lot of good options in the draft. Whenever I'm doing my mock drafts, which I'll be releasing another mock draft later on in the week, a lot of good safeties are in there round 3, round 4 in these mock draft simulators. So I can see the Texans going either way. Let me know your thoughts, though, down below in the comments section. Next up, this name excites me a lot more than the first one. Justin Simmons out of Atlanta. Signed a 1-year deal with the Falcons this past year. Played pretty well, and, Spotrac gave him a, projection of around $6 million a year. And the idea of pairing Simmons with Bullock on the back end, having Petrie as that nickel star role, that gets me jazzed up. I mean, this past season, 62 tackles, 2 interceptions, 7 pass breakups for the Falcons. Justin Simmons is a little bit, longer in the tooth, a little bit older, but he's got a lot of great experience and has been at the top of the mountain. I mean, he's been an all-pro multiple times in his NFL career. Maybe he's not as good as he once was, but I still think he's one of the better options that the Texans could afford in free agency this upcoming offseason. Look at over the past 4 years. I mean, he's relatively healthy, and the play hasn't dropped off. Look at 2022. You only played 12 games, 6 interceptions in 12 games. You pair that with a Calen Bullock who got 5 interceptions this past year. Yeah, things are looking really good for the Houston Texans in that corner if you're looking at takeaways. If you add Justin Simmons to a guy like Calen Bullock on the back end, like I said, might be a little bit more expensive than what most people are willing to, pay for another safety. But if you're looking to have the best secondary in the entire NFL, adding Justin Simmons could do just that. Next up, you want to maybe continue some continuity? I know this one might not be a popular choice among Texans fans, but I don't think it's the worst option to look at running it back with Eric Murray. Stepped in admirably for the Texans this past year. Played, I think, pretty well. I mean, wasn't the best safety overall, but I thought he did a decent job there filling in after, multiple guys got injured during the season. This past year, his coverage stats, I mean, like I said, it's not the prettiest stats, but, the quarterback rating when targeted, pass breakups, interceptions. He did have another key interception up against the Chargers that I really think, kind of broke that game open for the Texans. Over the past 4 years has been kind of, a spot starter / guy who kind of just fills in for the Texans. And, I know a lot of y'all are going to go out there and say, dude, he was not good last year. Why would Brady bring somebody back who's not good? Well, he already knows the defense, has good continuity on the back end with him and Calen Bullock. Maybe another year in DeMeco Ryans' system, he gets just that much better. And I think he'd be another cheap option. Around that same price tag that I talked about with Marcus Epps, around a $1-2 million per year, I think is what we're looking at. Maybe a little bit more because, he started for the Texans for half the season and played, halfway decent. I think this is a good option for the Texans if they're looking to, bring back some continuity, bring back some of their own guys into the locker room. Now, coming up, some more safety options for Houston, some more expensive ones who the Texans might not be able to afford, but I'll still show you those names here in just a moment. But I couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our amazing friends over at PrizePicks. Get started today with America's #1 daily fantasy sports app out there with over 10 million active members. All you do, pick more, pick less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. And it's almost about that time. Pitchers and catchers are reporting for duty, and it's time to play ball. So get started with PrizePicks. It is the best way to win real money during the baseball season, which is about to get going. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds. Turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. And something that I love, especially before the season gets going, are their season-long projections. This is what I have for the baseball year coming up. Obviously, sucks that Kyle Tucker is no longer a member of the Houston Astros, but I think he'll get more than 29.5 home runs for the Chicago Cubs. I think he'll still have a good year. Framber Valdez, I mean, he's your ace. I'm really hoping he gets more than 11.5 wins. Christian Walker, one of the bigger free agency signings that the Astros made. I think he'll get more than 30.5 home runs. And then Jordan, your daddy, 34.5 home runs. Yeah, give me the more on that as well. You can use my picks, go against them. Just do it over on PrizePicks today. And make sure you're using our code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So get started today with our friends over at PrizePicks. Run your game. Now, another good option for the Texans, and I think this one is a sneaky good option. Xavier Woods from the Carolina Panthers has bounced around a little bit in his NFL career. This past year for Carolina, a team that was, to be frank with you, was not good on the defensive side of the football. Had almost 120 tackles, 3 interceptions, 6 pass breakups. Now, if you're a safety, you really don't want your safety getting 119 tackles. Remember Jalen Petrie, his rookie season? We were like, oh, he has so many tackles. Yeah, that's not a good thing. You don't want your safety racking up tackles. That means running backs, wide receivers are getting to that last level, and he's the last line of defense. But I do like the fact 3 interceptions, 6 pass breakups. I think he's a good, sneaky option as another cover safety back there. Played 17 games for the Panthers this past year. We can look at his completion/attempts. Also, 6 pass breakups to 3 interceptions. A quarterback rating when targeted of 86.0. And like I said, has played pretty well over the past 4 seasons. Those pass breakup numbers, interception numbers, somewhat consistent over the past 3 years for Carolina. So I wouldn't mind adding a guy like a Xavier Woods because I think he can give you something. He can still give you something on the back end around that $4 million projection from Spotrac. I'd be willing to shell that out for Xavier Woods. Still on the right side of 30, even though he's been in the league for a while. I think this is a sneaky good option for the Texans to add to their secondary. Now, I have one more good option for the Texans to add in free agency that won't absolutely break the bank. But before I do, we are on the road to 30,000 subscribers. I want to get there before the start of the NFL draft. We are currently, by the time I'm making this video, 26,922 subs. That means we need 3,078. We're going to keep on going, keep on chugging along until we get to 30K. I want to get there before the start of the NFL draft. If you haven't already, hey, you almost made it to the end of today's video. Make sure you hit that sub button for daily Texans videos. It's 100% free, and this is my guarantee. Hit that sub button. Give me 1 week to prove to you why we are one of the best Texans channels, not only on YouTube, but the entire internet. If you don't like it in a week, unsubscribe. No skin off your back. But it's 100% free, and let me prove to you why this should be your one-stop shop for Texans news and rumors. Now, before we get into our last name that is affordable, let's talk about things that are too expensive. I'll just, these guys, I'll maybe do a little window shopping, just kind of look at me, oh, that's nice. No way I can afford that, though. All these guys, over $15 million a year projected on Spotrac. I believe except Julian Blackmon. I believe he was around the 11, 12 million, but still, I think that's a little bit too expensive out of the price range for Nick Caserio. Would love a reunion with Justin Reed. They had him valued at around $20 million per year. No, thank you. Not same with Javon Holland. Cameron Bynum. I talked to our Vikings host, and he was actually floored with Spotrac's projection for him. They had him at around $18 million a year. Same with our Raiders host, Mitchell Renz. He said $17 million for Trevon Merrick. Seems a little rich for me. But regardless, I think these guys are all going to get more than $10 million a year. And with where the Texans are at and the other holes that they need to fill, I wouldn't feel comfortable with the Texans spending over $10 million on a safety. That's why these guys, a little bit too much out of the price range for the Houston Texans. But let's get into the last name that the Texans can't afford. Elijah Molden, out of Los Angeles, played with the Chargers this past year. And if that name sounds familiar, he started with the Tennessee Titans, is in that kind of hybrid safety corner role. They had him listed as a corner, but when you look at his PFF stats, where he lined up most for the Chargers this past season, it was free safety. That's where he had the bulk of his snaps for the Chargers. 75 tackles, 3 interceptions, 7 pass breakups for Molden. A little bit smaller, 5'10", 192, but hey, we're cool with the smaller guys in the secondary. Jalen Petrie can still bring the boom, and so can Elijah Molden. When we look at his 2024 coverage stats, 15 games played for LA this past year. Only 1 touchdown allowed. Like I said, 7 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and a quarterback rating when targeted of 62.6. That is excellent by Molden this past year. And we look at his stats over the last 4 years, definitely had his best year of his entire career in 2024 after leaving Tennessee, which makes sense. That poverty franchise, the Titans, of course he wasn't able to develop with them. I'm obviously mostly kidding with that. But, I mean, coming off of a great year, he's still really young. Around that $4-5 million a year range, I'd be down to sign a guy like Elijah Molden as well. And I think, kind of to wrap this kind of show in a nice, pretty bow, I think the Texans do need to add more depth in the secondary for next season. Whether that's adding more safety help, adding more help in the cornerback room. Because honestly, we have a great duo. Maybe one of the best duos in the entire National Football League in Calen, Bullock, and at safety, at cornerback with Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley. One of the best duos in the entire NFL. But there's nobody really behind that, right? We had guys like Jeff Okudah, Kadar Holman getting snaps whenever, Lassiter was hurt, whenever Stingley couldn't go. You need more depth. You need more help behind those guys in the secondary because if somebody gets injured, the Texans are screwed. So I could definitely see them adding in the secondary in free agency and the draft this year. One more time, just a reminder, help us grow here on the channel. We are chugging along, almost to 27,000 subscribers. Make sure you go down, hit that subscribe button for daily Texans news and rumors videos.